Alright, so here are my rankings for the Test Your Luck tournament that is coming up next week. As always, if you think I made a mistake and you think there's something that should be higher, just let me know in the comments. But here's what I've got, and I'll start with my S tier at the top. So first off, I have not played in a Metronome tournament before, but I've read some stuff on it, looked up what people have used in the past, and from what I've seen, these 7 Pokemon at the top are what seem to be the best choices. So a big thing in a tournament like this is immunities and having good abilities and then just having good general bulk. And since you don't know what kind of moves you're going to be using, it's good to have your stats pretty evenly distributed instead of having a Pokemon like Alakazam who has a super high special attack and a super low physical attack. So, starting with Togekiss here, Togekiss obviously has an immunity to ground. It's got good abilities. You could use Serene Grace, which could be really good in this tournament. It might be able to help you get like a status condition on somebody or be able to get a flinch. So Serene Grace could be really good. Super Luck could also be really good. You could make a case for a Super Luck Scope Lens Togekiss. I don't think that's the way I would run it in this tournament, but you could make a case for that. But generally for this tournament, most of these Pokemon, I think I would want to make them as bulky as possible because I feel like survivability is going to be the biggest thing in this tournament. You don't know what moves you're going to be using. So I'd probably go with a more bulky set and go with Serene Grace for a Togekiss, but you definitely can make a case for the Super Lux Scope Lens and try to get some damage. You still want somebody to be able to do a bunch of damage, right? So maybe Super Lux Scope Lens Togekiss could do some damage for you. Next, Snorlax. Snorlax has a couple good abilities as well. Obviously, you can use Gluttony if you want to use like a Pinch Berry on it. Otherwise, a lot of people are using Immunity on Snorlax to protect from being poisoned because in this tournament, status conditions are quite common, so to be able to protect from a status condition could be a big deal. Snorlax, again, like I said with Togekiss, you're probably just going to want to make it bulky, but another option would be to put a Choice Band on Snorlax and try to use Snorlax as someone who's going to do a lot of damage. One other great item for Snorlax is to put a Rocky Helmet on it. So Snorlax is so bulky, if you put a Rocky Helmet on it, that could be a really good strategy as well. Next 2 Pokemon here both get Disable, so Poltegeist and Gengar. So I've seen a lot of people talking about Gengar, but I honestly think Poltegeist is a little bit better than Gengar. They have pretty similar stats, except Poltegeist is bulkier, and as I've been saying, I feel like bulk is better than speed in this tournament, and really that's all Gengar has on Poltegeist is speed. I'd rather have the bulk in this tournament, but either way, having Disable is great, because if you disable your opponent's Metronome, you're either going to force them to switch out, or if it's down to their last Pokemon, now they're just going to have to use Struggle, and that could be a great way to finish off your opponent at the end of a match. So those 2 Pokemon are definitely going to be really good. Disable in general is going to be great, but yeah, using it at the end of a match to close out a game could be really great. So next, these 2 Pokemon both get Pressure. So Dusknoir and Dusclops both get Pressure. Pressure obviously is going to be really good because Metronome's your only move. So Pressure is going to help waste your opponent's PP. So using both of these Pokemon could be great. Obviously with Dusclops, I would put an Eviolite on it. Dusknoir, you could make a case for some different items on it. I don't know what the best item would be exactly, but either one of these Pokemon are going to be good to have on your team. And I know some people are talking about using both of them to really waste their opponent's PP with having double pressure. Next Pokemon, Clefable. Clefable has 2 good abilities as well. So Unaware could be really good because some Pokemon do end up getting boosted up quite a bit, especially if they have weakness policy on them. I haven't played a ton of matches so far on Showdown, but when I have played, some Pokemon have gotten really built up and end up having high attack and special attack, and Unaware is obviously going to ignore that. So Unaware could be really good, but what I think would be better is putting Magic Guard on it, and then you could put like Life Orb on it, so it's not going to take Life Orb damage with Magic Guard. It's also not going to be hurt by, burns and poisons and stuff like that. So Magic Guard could be really good. And then Clefable just has really even stats. So it's a Pokemon that you could make really bulky, put a Life Orb on it, and then with Magic Guard, it's going to do some pretty good damage, and it's still going to be pretty bulky. So that's it for the S tier, I think. Like I said, those are probably the 7 best Pokemon here. I think those are the ones that you're going to be seeing the most. So next in my A tier, these are some Pokemon that could be really good. These are some other Pokemon that I've seen a lot of so far. So starting with Poliwrath and Politoed, both these Pokemon get damp and they get water absorb. So water absorb gives you immunity to water, but it also lets you heal hit points if you're hit by a water move. So that could end up being really big. Damp also could end up being really big to stop moves like explosions. So you could stop yourself from blowing up, or you could stop yourself from getting knocked out from an explosion. So I think you can make a case for either one of those abilities here. Like I talked about at the beginning, it's great to have immunities. Even better when that immunity can heal you, but you can make a case for damp as well. So both these Pokemon also have pretty even stats. You can make them pretty bulky, so I think you can make a case for both these Pokemon to be on your team. Machamp is another one who could be really interesting. He's got a huge attack. You could put a choice band on it and then hope that you get lucky and get some physical attacks coming out with Machamp, and that could do a ton of damage. And then Machamp is another one who has 2 good abilities. So I talked about how status conditions are quite common with this tournament. So if you put Guts on Machamp, that could be really good. You also could use No Guard on Machamp, and maybe you get lucky and he uses a move like Sheer Cold or Fissure, and you just get an automatic knockout. So again, you could make a case for either of those abilities here, and Machamp obviously could be a really good Pokemon. Next, Grimmsnarl, another one that I think has 2 viable abilities. So I know some people are wary to use Prankster because Prankster doesn't work against other dark Pokemon, but the only dark Pokemon in the tournament are Grimmsnarl and Sableye. Yes, I know you have the unevolved forms down here, but I don't think you're going to be seeing Morgrem and Impidimp. So I think you could use Prankster Grimmsnarl, and if your opponent's using a Grimmsnarl or a Sableye, just don't bring it. But as long as your opponent doesn't have any dark Pokemon on their team, then you could feel free to bring that Prankster Grimmsnarl, and obviously it's always going to go first because Metronome is a status move. So I don't think Prankster Grimmsnarl is terrible, but the other option you could have for Grimmsnarl is Pickpocket, and then maybe you give it like a Pinch Berry, so that once it uses its berry, now it's going to be able to steal the item from its opponent. So that could be really good as well. That might be the better option in this tournament. It probably is the better option in this tournament, but I think there is a case to be made for Prankster. I don't think it's completely ridiculous to consider using Prankster, but Pickpocket is probably the better ability for this tournament. Miltank is another one that has a couple good abilities. So first off, Miltank is scrappy. So as you can see up here, I have 4 ghost type Pokemon because they have double immunity. They're immune to normal and fighting. Well, Scrappy ignores those immunities. It makes Miltank able to hit those Pokemon with fighting and normal attacks. So using Scrappy could be really good because there's going to be a ton of ghost types being used in this tournament. So that definitely makes Miltank a threat. The other thing that Miltank gets is it gets Sap Sipper, and I played against this on Showdown, and it had Sap Sipper, and my Pokemon kept using grass moves, and that kept boosting Miltank's attack, and then Miltank was just wiping my team out. So that could be a really good ability as well. So if you have Sap Sipper, that gives Miltank immunity to 2 types. It would be immune to Ghost and Grass, and it would get an attack boost when hit by a grass move. So again, 2 viable moves. I think I honestly would probably go with Sap Sipper. I think that you could get more benefits from that maybe than Scrappy. But either way, both are good abilities, and Miltank definitely could be a Pokemon that could be really good in the tournament. So next is Blissey. Blissey has obviously really good bulk. Its hit points are ridiculous. Its defense is terrible, but if you max out its defense and then spread the other EVs around, maybe you give some to special attacks so that it's doing a little bit more damage with its special attacks. Maybe you give some more to hit points and special defense just to make it as bulky as possible. but this is a Pokemon who could be on the field really long. The problem is its damage output. So its special attack is like 75, which obviously isn't great, but its physical attack is 10, which is absolutely terrible. So that's the problem with Blissey, is the damage output isn't going to be great, but it is so bulky. That's going to be able to keep it on the field, and it could just be great for stalling your opponent out and using up their PP, and maybe they end up knocking themselves out with struggle. So I felt like Blissey should be in the A tier just because it's so bulky. And lastly, for the A tier, these two Pokemon both get the ability Aroma Veil, which stops them from being disabled. So these could be two good answers to Gengar and Poltegeist. So that's why I have them in the A tier. Their stats are pretty evenly distributed, so that's good as well. So these could be two good answers to Poltegeist and Gengar since they can't be disabled. All right, so then next with my B tier here. The B tier is just a bunch of Pokemon who obviously could be used, could be viable, but in my opinion aren't as great as the ones above them, but they definitely are Pokemon that you could find a way to use, and they could end up being good for you. So starting with Hitmonchan, Hitmonchan gets the ability Keen Eye, and that could be really good. Evasiveness is kind of an issue in this tournament, so Pokemon might be raising their evasiveness or lowering your accuracy, and Keen Eye just ignores all of that. So that could end up being a big deal. Again, it's not something that's extraordinary. That's why I have it in the B tier, but maybe that's something you're interested in and might want to have on your team. Alakazam, just like Clefable, gets Magic Guard. So this could be another good Magic Guard Life Orb user. Obviously, the problem with Alakazam is its low defense and low physical attack. But maybe if you invest in one of those two stats, maybe you just try to make Alakazam bulky, give it Life Orb, and try to take advantage of its high special attack. Maybe that could end up being really good. Obviously, Magic Guard is a great ability, and if you put a Life Orb on it, it could do a ton of damage if you get lucky and are hitting with special attacks. Mr. Rime doesn't have great abilities in my opinion, but it has good overall stats. Its stats are pretty even, so it's just another Pokemon that you could make pretty bulky as far as this tournament goes. Not great abilities, but it's something that you could use. Alright, so basically the same thing with the Galar Mr. Mime. The other thing with this one is you obviously could put Eviolite on it, so maybe that could make it even bulkier. And same thing as Mr. Rime. It's got pretty even stats, so it's something you could make really bulky, and I don't know, maybe it could be decent. So Ludicolo is kind of the same thing, doesn't have great abilities as far as this tournament goes, but it's got pretty evenly spread out stats. Slurpuff has some interesting abilities, so Sweet Veil makes it immune to falling asleep. It also gets Unburdened, so maybe you could put Weakness Policy on it and use Unburden, and if its Weakness Policy ends up getting activated, it could be dangerous. So maybe that's something that you might want to try. Weakness Policy could be really interesting in this tournament on the right Pokemon. It's just a matter of luck of it getting activated, but everything's kind of a matter of luck in this tournament, right? So maybe that's something you might want to try. The Indeedys, again, pretty solid stats. I don't know how much Psychic Surge really helps you in this tournament. Maybe Synchronize could be interesting, so if you get statused, it would give your opponent the same status condition. So maybe that would be better than Psychic Surge, because I just don't really know what Psychic Surge does for you, and unless you're really lucky and one of them uses a Psychic attack. I guess it could activate a Psychic Seed if you wanted to give them an extra special defense boost. But yeah, they might not be the best Pokemon, but they're definitely usable. Sableye is just like a lesser version of Grimmsnarl. Its stats are lower than Grimmsnarl, but same thing. You could use it for Prankster as long as you're not playing against another Sableye or Grimmsnarl. It's another Pokemon that gets Keen Eye, just like Hitmonchan. It doesn't have great overall stats, though. There's definitely other Pokemon that I would use over Sableye, but it's got two interesting abilities. Maybe you could give them a shot. Munchlax could be good with an Eviolite. It does have pretty good stats, so if you put an Eviolite on it, it could be really bulky. Its attack is pretty solid. Could be interesting. I don't know why you would ever use this over a Snorlax, but with an Eviolite, could be interesting. Mr. Mime, I don't think is very good. Its defense and its attack are really bad, So it's something that I would avoid, but I don't know. It does get Technician, it does get Filter, so maybe this is another Pokemon that you can make bulky and find some kind of a use for it. So Hitmonlee is another one that has a couple of interesting abilities. It does get Limber, so it can't be paralyzed. And again, I've talked about status conditions. And it also gets Unburdened, so like Slurpuff, maybe put a weakness policy on this thing, and if you're lucky and get its weakness policy activated, maybe it could be a dangerous threat. Jinx, another one that has a really low physical attack and physical defense, but it again has good special attack and special defense, so like some of these other Pokemon, maybe if you max out its defense, maybe you can find a way to use Jinx. And then lastly, Inteleon. I don't love Inteleon. It doesn't have very good defense. I think it's going to be kind of easy to knock out. It's really fast, but like I've said this whole time, I would take bulk over speed in this tournament, so I don't love Inteleon. But it does have really good special attack, a solid attack. So maybe if you invest in bulk, maybe it could be decent. So lastly, with my C and D tier, these are just the unevolved Pokemon. So I have middle forms here in the C tier, and then the D tier, the first form. I don't really have a whole lot to say about these Pokemon. These are all Pokemon that I just wouldn't use. I think with any of these, I would use their evolved form over these ones. Obviously, you can put Eviolite on any of these Pokemon, but I don't think putting Eviolite on any of these Pokemon makes them viable. Especially these Pokemon in the D tier. I mean, there's absolutely no reason that you would use any of these Pokemon down here. They're just going to be super weak. For the middle evolution Pokemon, I don't know, maybe you can make a case for putting Eviolite on one of these guys. I don't see it. If you guys think I'm wrong there, let me know. But for all these Pokemon on the bottom, I would not use any of these in the C or D tier. So that's it for my list. Like always, let me know what you guys think. If there's someone you think should be higher, let me know. And let me know why. I'm always curious to hear. Like I said, I've never played in a metronome tournament before. I'm excited to give it a try. But for those of you who have played in this before, let me know what you think. Otherwise, that's everything I got for this video. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.